Welcome to Herself Reclaimed. I'm Jennifer Soames, an integrative health and capacity coach, helping women reclaim their energy and capacity so they can make effective decisions, set stronger boundaries, and have sustainable success in both life and in business. Today, I am joined by Kim Szanto. Let me share a bit about her and then bring her in and dive into our conversation. Kim is the founder of Kentro Studio. She works with founders to identify what is actually holding a business back. Often not the amount of work, but the number of unresolved decisions that the leaders are carrying. Actually, what I could do is pause that. I will cut this out. I'll go back to your bio. Kim is the founder of Kentro Studio. She works with founders to identify what is actually holding a business back. Often not the amount of work, but the number of unresolved decisions leaders are carrying. Her work focuses on helping founders see those patterns and decide what needs to change next. Welcome, Kim. Let me bring her in here. It's great to have you here today.
Hi, Jennifer. Thank you. Great to be here.
Well, as you know, and if you're new to the channel, this will be new for you. Preventing burnout is the focus of my work with women entrepreneurs, and many of our listeners here want to prevent themselves from sliding down that slippery slope. Having been a founder twice now myself, I know it's easy, sometimes too easy, to get overwhelmed and overloaded. So Kim, when a founder tells you, "I'm overloaded," how do you figure out whether the real issue is workload or a pile of open decisions that she keeps carrying around?
So the first thing I listen for is how many decisions they're actually carrying. Most founders assume that overwhelm is due to the workload, but often it's several decisions that are unresolved. And what happens is that the brain keeps hanging on to those decisions and carrying them around until those questions are closed. So a lot of stress comes from not knowing what's actually decided and what's still up in the air.
What are some of the big decisions that you see typically, like from time and time again, that women are struggling with and have a hard time making?
So a lot of the loops I see aren't necessarily like big strategic decisions on the surface. They show up as small things that founders can, keep thinking about. And they end up being a bunch of micro decisions like pricing questions and should I discount my services, or positioning choices that aren't settled, maybe content that keeps shifting around. So those are daily loops that usually trace back to larger decisions because those haven't been fully settled. And so, it's a constant loop for them to be thinking about those things.
Those sound
And
like
some
things that, oh, go ahead.
and some decisions obviously carry more emotional weight than others, right? Um, And what I see is when identity and value are involved, those decisions are obviously more taxing on your brain because you're looping around and trying to solve those.
Especially those identity and value decisions. I see those as decisions that keep women up at night. It's 2 a.m. and your brain is going and going, am I branding the right way? Is my message getting out there clear enough? Do I need to redo that thing? And so ladies listening at home, like if you find yourself doing that at 2, 3 a.m. of thinking about those things, keep listening because this is exactly what Kim helps people with. So thanks for sharing that. Definitely loops are a thing. As I have studied the brain and how both it and we as humans function, as well as from my own lived experience, I know our brains can easily get stuck in repeated cycles and loops. And this shows up not only in our thought patterns, but also in our behaviors and our actions. You talk, Kim, about closing internal loops and getting to clarity. What are the most common loops that you see women founders leaving open? And what do those loops cost them in energy and focus week to week?
Yeah, so a lot of those open loops are, you know, small things. And like you said, it's a accumulation of things that's going to keep them up at night. And it does have a mental effect on people, um, because you're carrying all of those things around in your head and constantly just going through again and again and trying to solve them. And the more decisions that you can make, you know, the better off you're going to be able to close those loops and not have them, kind of just churning around in your head.
To me, it seems it's like being stuck on a perpetual hamster wheel or having a carrot dangling in front of you and you can never get to it. It's that like, I'm almost there, I'm almost there, I'm almost there, or just spinning, spinning, spinning. It's like sitting in a rocking chair. It gives you something to do, but doesn't actually get you anywhere.
Absolutely. And it can be repetitive, especially when you're dealing with clients all day. And if you've got these small things that are kind of in the background that are, constantly going through your head, but they're really bigger decisions. If you step back and think about what those big decisions are, that can really help you clear your head and be able to move on and be able to focus on the client and what you're really trying to deliver versus trying to make the decisions on the fly.
It's almost like being stuck in that analysis paralysis of having all these options. What do I do? But then you don't do anything. And then that doesn't serve you or your customers or your clients or whomever you're working with. And it doesn't serve you either, because then you're not actually getting anything done and your brain doesn't get that done message. It's just like all these open tabs. I'm using a lot of different metaphors and analogies today, but having all these open tabs, and what happens is that is draining. It's like no wonder this instigates burnout, because all of that energy is just being wasted. It's like having all the lights on in the house, but you're not even home. And you just need to like rein it in, actually make a decision, and be able to then move forward in however you need to.
Absolutely. I think once you make some of those big decisions, there's a lot that falls into place quickly, and you are able to get that mental pressure off. And you have energy for the other things that you need to get done instead of constantly churning with the same decisions over and over again.
Yeah, it's time to get off of the hamster wheel. And I know for myself, and maybe you've experienced this too, or some of the people that you've worked with, and for those of you listening, maybe you as well. This being my second business, this is not my first rodeo. And having been a solopreneur for 12 years previously, I found myself in the past second guessing myself when it came to making decisions. And because there was that self-doubt or fear, that actually prevented me from making decisions. Do you experience that in some of the clients that you work with as well?
Absolutely. And I personally experienced it, and I see clients who do, right? Where it's hard not to second guess what we're doing. But I think once you kind of really figure out what your business stands for and who you want to work with and how you want to message those things, the other things fall into place a little bit more easily. And so that's really where I help, kind of pull them back to what's the big decision that you're really trying to make. It might seem like a lot of decisions, but usually it turns out to be one or two, kind of significant decisions that aren't being made that are causing all of the noise and the mental strain.
Yeah, there's this domino effect of like once you start to make really those key decisions, and then everything else just falls into place. And I've talked about this a lot in other interviews, but it's appropriate to bring in here too. Like you just mentioned, when we align ourselves with particularly our vision and our values as it relates to our business as well as our lives, then making decisions is so much easier because that is our guiding compass, those two things, in my opinion. Because if we are really clear about what our vision is and what our values are, then making decisions is like, it's a piece of cake, or at least more so than not most of the time, because everything is based on that. And if you're making a decision and you go, does that align with my values or my vision? And you go, nope. All right, that's a no. And that just helps me personally navigate what next steps, as well as I personally use my body as a barometer as well when making decisions, which for some people might sound a little crazy, but people talk about, gut reactions all the time or listening to your gut. So we've become accustomed to hearing this. And so it's not too far out there. But when I think about something, making a decision, I will picture each outcome and I notice how my body responds to each. Like, is there like a shrinking, kind of like, ugh, that doesn't feel good energy? Or is it like, yeah, I've got this? And so that can also be really helpful because I know I overthink things. And so actually listening to my body in that way can be a really, really helpful tool because then I get out of my head into my body. And more often than not, my body is not wrong about those things.
It certainly helps to listen to your insight for sure.
Yeah. And so as entrepreneurs, I mean, we want to be getting inquiries about our services and our products and having sales conversations. But sometimes in our excitement, especially about sharing about our business and all the things that we do, we end up having those conversations with the wrong people, or at least I know I have. So Kim, if a woman entrepreneur is getting wrong fit inquiries, price shoppers, or endlessly long sales conversations that don't convert, what do you look at first to fix the mismatch without telling her to post more content?
Absolutely. So when I see that happening, it is about going back to some decisions that haven't fully settled. So they often know who they want to work with, but maybe that hasn't clearly been translated into how they describe their work. So messaging ends up staying broad, and then you end up with the wrong clients or having to explain things over and over again. And what looks like a marketing problem is very often a positioning decision that hasn't been fully settled yet.
That's a really important point. And I can tell you from my first career doing bodywork and particularly structural integration, which if you're listening and you're going, I don't know what that is, yeah, you're in good company. The hardest part of that job was explaining what I did. And yes, that is a marketing thing, but I also had to get really clear on what it is that I actually did. And I'll tell you, at first, it was so hard to explain what I did because I was still getting to know what it is. And so, if you're a founder who's also starting, also launching, or maybe you're still in your early years of your business, maybe you haven't figured out exactly quite yet what it is that you're doing as you're gaining experience and gaining knowledge to be able to have the verbs, the verbiage, the wordage, all of that, I'm making up words today, to be able to explain it. Any other thoughts on that, Kim, that you want to share?
That's absolutely right. And I think, a lot of people can easily say that I need more marketing because my message isn't getting out there. But I think the one thing, that is true is just trying to figure out what that message should be and making sure that that's what's being communicated.
Knowing your message, so then your marketing is effective, because it's not necessarily that your marketing is bad, it's just that your message isn't clear.
Exactly. And marketing absolutely helps. I am 100%, a believer in marketing, obviously. But the one thing I will say is marketing without the right message will bring those mismatches and positioning issues. And so that's really what I'm talking about when I say, maybe some of the messaging stays broad and attracts the wrong people when you haven't made some positioning decisions.
Yeah, such a good point. And understanding what's really happening is key to improving anything that's not going the way that we want, whether it's our bodies, whether it's our businesses, or anything else in our lives. Walk me through your diagnostic phase. What are you measuring or listening for that most founders skip because they jump straight into tactics and technology?
So in the beginning, I'm listening for what decisions they're still trying to figure out. And a lot of it is listening to what they're saying and how that aligns with the expectations, the priorities, and decisions, and making sure those all make sense and that they really are getting them to the right place. Most people do jump to tactics or tools, but if the most important decisions are still undecided, none of those tools are going to help. So often founders think that they have a whole bunch of different problems, but when we slow down and really look at it together, there's usually one decision underneath all of it that hasn't been fully settled yet. And once that is visible, a lot of issues resolve themselves or are easier to resolve.
Yeah, because I know like all the tactics and the tech, especially when it comes to AI, like it's like shiny, sparkly, like, ooh, I want to go play with that, which is great. And even in interviews that I've done with AI consultants, for those of you listening and watching, check out episode 1 with Abina Takar, because she said just what Kimberly is saying is that it's not a tech problem, there's a business problem. And so we can have all this sparkly, shiny tech and make everything look pretty. And yet, if we haven't gotten clear about everything in our business, then again, it's not serving us. And yeah, we don't need that, because then that just wastes our time, it wastes our energy, and that gets us closer to burnout when we aren't getting the results that we actually want to see in our business or our lives. And so, Kim, creating a rhythm for your life, including business, is something I help my clients with so they can have greater capacity for all the things that they want and need to do. You help founders create a simple weekly cadence and decision rhythm. What does capacity friendly cadence look like in a real life for a high performing, busy woman who wants also flexibility and space?
So I think the biggest thing is about figuring out what your priorities and boundaries are for the week. And once that's decided, that requires less mental negotiation during the week. So you're not constantly asking yourself, what am I supposed to be doing? What am I supposed to be working on? So the cadence is really less about productivity. It's more about reducing the decision load. And most relief for founders doesn't come from reducing the amount of work. It comes from reducing how many decisions that need to be made.
That makes so much sense. I know when I have a lot of decisions to make, or there's just, again, like too many things on my plate, not so much in terms of what I have to get done, but again, it's the decisions. And that's really what paralyzes me, because I just kind of go deer in headlights mode. And then I just want to shut down and not do any of it. And so by having dedicated time on the calendar, or even just mentally knowing that, okay, today I'm going to do this, It could be writing down a list of those things, however it works best for each person, because each person has a system. But to really put that in so that, again, there needs to be flexibility in case something comes up. Like if you have kids, you have to go pick one up from school because they're sick, like, right, life happens. But then there are those non-negotiable things that are on your calendar, and those decisions that get made, making sure that they're on your list for the day and that you can cross it off by the end of the day and feel really good about that. So that even if you didn't get all your productivity things done, but the decision is made that then is going to lead you to be more productive or to be as productive as you want to be. Then you've got the flexibility in the space, especially mentally, to then enjoy other aspects of your life as well as your business.
Absolutely. And I think it's so easy to make a big long list of all the things we wanted to get done. So I think having that list of items that you've decided are priority is going to be your best guide so that you don't end up overwhelming yourself with, 500 tasks that you wanted to get done and didn't.
Absolutely. Yeah, because then if you got too long of a list and then you see like one thing crossed off, and then it's like, oh, you don't feel too
So
good about that. But you prioritize those things. Like pick a few, pick three, pick something that is tangible, that's realistic for you that day, and then feel good about it at the end of the day. And so I mentioned at the earlier that in my first business, doing structural integration bodywork, explaining that work to people was the hardest part of my job. And even as I am opening up this business with this current work, the most challenging part of it is, again, explaining what it is that I do. And a lot of my audience also has real expertise, but it's not being understood online. What are the fastest ways to close that clarity gap so the right people reach out and she stops feeling like she has to perform 24/7 to be visible?
And I think this is one so many founders struggle with, right? And as you mentioned, most of the time the issue isn't about expertise. It's about the fact that the founder hasn't fully decided what they want to be known for yet. And so their content can end up describing everything they do instead of the problem they're best at solving. So once that decision gets made, the visibility piece becomes much easier. And there's a whole lot less decisions that need to be made around that because you know what you're communicating. And that message just becomes so much simpler.
Absolutely. I know a lot of people and viewers and listeners, if this is you, like, listen up, especially if you're starting out or if you're early on in your business. If you find yourself describing how you do your work, like all the nitty gritty, juicy stuff that you love, and people are going, huh? Or like you see their eyes glaze over, or they start to fidget with things and you lose them, it might be because it's not relating to them in terms of, well, what do I get out of it? Right? Because most people want to know what's in it for me. Mm-hmm. And that can sometimes be the hardest question to answer because we love the work that we do, or we love the products that we sell, and we're so into it. But it's like, how do I describe it in a benefit-oriented way so that potential clients or customers go, that's me, that's what I need. It's like she's in my head, right? And so if we don't know what that is, then there's no way our marketing is going to be effective, because it's not about the how you do things as so much as what's the outcome that people are going to get by working with you or the product that you sell. Anything else you want to share on that, Kim?
I think that's so true. And it's hard not to talk about what we're doing, right? Because we're so in it. And, focusing on the outcome and making sure people know how they're going to feel and what they're going to actually get, the tangible benefits they're going to get out of that, is really going to make things easier for the clients to come to you and know what you're going to provide in the end.
Absolutely. And so, I don't do business coaching. I've certainly experienced a lot of it on the receiving end myself, but my work is all on nervous system regulation and helping people be able to really live their vision for their lives. And so for you people listening, if you want that clarity, like this is where people like Kim come in and can really, really help you with that. And which is why I brought her on today. And so, Kim, a couple final questions that everybody gets asked. What's one practice or mindset that helps you stay grounded when things feel uncertain or overwhelming?
Yeah, I mean, I usually step back and really try to figure out what decision I'm carrying around because a lot of pressure comes from that decision, even if it's not in the forefront of my mind. And so I really try to identify what's the big decision that I haven't made or, you know, have been thinking about. And once I identified that, that helps things become much clearer and it makes me feel less overwhelmed.
You simply practice what you preach.
I really do. I really do.
That's called integrity, my friend. And as we wrap up, what is your biggest takeaway from our conversation today?
So I think the biggest takeaway is that most founders are solving the wrong problem. They try to reduce the number of tasks or become more productive. And I think it really is about just trying to close those loops and helping make that path forward easier because you're settling the decisions that have been sitting in the background that are eating up your energy. So I think if you can close some of those loops and make some of those decisions, that's really going to help you not only get what you need to done, but make it easier in the long run to get it done.
That's great. And I think my biggest takeaway, there are several that come to mind, but I have to pick one. And I think it's that a lot of people think that they have a business or technology or a marketing problem, when instead they ultimately have too many decisions to make, and those are challenging and getting in the way of actually A, doing their work, and B, effectively communicating the benefit of their work or their product or service to the right people. So there's the mismatch, and it's really about peeling back those layers, if you will, and going, oh, it's actually a decision issue and not about anything else. Well, thank you so much, Kim, for joining me today. It was such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And as I take Kim out here, if you would like to ask Kim questions or connect with her, be sure to check out her links, which are in the description. And she'll be happy to answer those questions and help you get clarity in your business so that you can close those loops in your own business and life. And to all of you listening or watching, thank you for being here today. If something clicked for you, something resonated, or something opened up for you, be sure to subscribe so that you can stay in touch with more videos that support your energy, your sustainability, and your capacity and leadership. I'll see you in the next episode.